Well, good afternoon. Leland Live on your radio. April Marie here, filling in for Leland one last day before he returns next week. It's been a really it's been a lot of fun, I tell you. I think I've gotten as used to the camera as I'm gonna get. Not used to this at
Well,
all.
you look absolutely
Oh,
fantastic on there.
you're very sweet, very sweet. It's been an ongoing process this week. I tell you what, getting used to this. Which you guys have the podcast, so y'all had a leg up because you were already used to it before they put
Yeah.
cameras on you. And not a lot. It's there's not a lot of people generally on it anyway on the YouTube, but still, it's there. It exists. So I'm gonna get used to it. All right. Let's see. Trump is now. Here's what's happening now. We're starting to get a little bit more. We're getting a little bit more of a reaction out of Trump over the SCOTUS decision that said he could not use emergency powers for the tariffs. Now, of course, almost immediately, it's as if because when you're holding an office, it's not much different than when you're in a business. You are literally you're gaming out every scenario. If something goes to court, you're gaming out what could happen. So the Trump administration already had a plan B on the tariffs and immediately announced a 10% global tariff. And we'll see how they respond to that. They being the leftists, they're too busy taking their victory lap over the SCOTUS ruling, which had a split court, by the way. It's interesting. Trump, from what we're seeing reports of, was pretty angry in a closed door meeting after he had his press conference. He did call the decision deeply disturbing. They're saying it's an overreach, and that the president had the ability to do this. But we'll keep an eye on that. That is pretty much the headline of the day is this decision. And especially coming off of, as I said yesterday, he was in Georgia. He was talking about the deals he was able to cut as a result of those tariffs and those tariff threats. And so his administration is not going to walk away from this lightly because they know that American jobs are at stake, American prices are at stake, and manufacturing, all of those things returning here. So this isn't the end of this. I had in with me earlier this week, and if you missed it, it's on the podcast. You can go to 99.5 and wherever you get your podcast and listen to the podcast. But I had Jeff Brumlow on from the now the Birmingham Water Works. It's actually Central Alabama Water. As we were sitting here, a news story has just popped that members of the old Birmingham Water Works. Okay, so what happened? Short version of a long story, is the legislature, and they had tried this. They had tried this repeatedly, where they were going to do something with the Birmingham Water Works because it didn't represent the region of water users where all the customers were. Jefferson County of Birmingham played an oversized role, even though the customers spread out over 5 different counties. So the legislature, sure enough, went in and said, okay, we're going to make this a regional board. There's been all sorts of challenges here. There is precedent for this to happen, and they passed legislation. Well, as of this afternoon, about 3 o'clock, 3:15, two former members of that Birmingham Water Works which is no longer in existence, it's now Central Alabama Water, filed a federal lawsuit against Governor Kay Ivey, Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth, and state lawmakers, and then those who have appointed the new board, because they're super upset about this whole regional idea, claiming that the move was unconstitutional. Now, there's already a lawsuit. And by the way, because of the other lawsuit, there's all sorts of things that the new board can't do. Infrastructure upgrades, grades, certain loan things. Woodfin tried to put some ridiculous and absolutely ridiculous conditions on, oh, you have to have so many minority contacts and you have to do this. Not the most efficient, not the most effective, not the best priced. No, you have to pick minority contracts. So Woodfin tried to put all of these, which, by the way, when you go back and look at things that the current board is doing, is they're trying to get what is efficient, what is reasonable spending. That was like $30,000 a month for one vendor that literally provided no direct impact towards the consumers. It was like a business development kind of thing. So they came in and they said, look, we're going to do things that only get the water utility like working again and spending money right and all these things. If you're in the Birmingham area or you're in central Shelby County, all of those areas, St. Clair, if you're in this area, you've dealt with Birmingham Waterworks or what used to be Birmingham Waterworks and knew that it was a completely ridiculous thing. So the complaint, which was filed today in the Northern District of Alabama, also names Governor Bentley Jabbo, Senator Jabbo Wagner, Dan Roberts as defendants, and seeks, are you ready? $1.6 billion in compensation, along with an injunction to make the old Works Board, which was a hot freaking mess, in my opinion, make that go back into effect. Here's the thing. All of these costs for all of these lawsuits are eventually going to fall on the shoulders of the water users. And all they want is their bills to be accurate, their water to be safe and good, and the infrastructure to be improved. That's what they want. And you cannot convince me, and as I've watched these contracts, because it's almost mind-boggling to watch, and it was week after week, and I just started this beat for 1819 News. But week after week, meeting after meeting, they would go in there and they were cutting contracts, $10,000 here, $30,000 there. One contract was 38,000 and now it's now it's 18,000, something like that, give or take. Um, that was for a PR contract. Like you go in there and they're cutting these contracts, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of how they're saving money. Got rid of both lobby firms, outside lobby firms. I really genuinely believe we're at the end of the day, they're going to find that so much money that could have been spent on infrastructure improvements were instead just wasted away. And when the board member was here earlier this week talking, he said, there's no criminal, they haven't found anything criminal. And I'm not saying they have, but there's certainly shenanigans. There were shenanigans afoot. Like looking at some of these numbers and some of these contracts they've had to cut, you're like, really? Really? Who thought this was a good idea? So this will be interesting. The plaintiffs are William Muhammad and Brenda Lewis, both members of the old board, who are taking this to court. Woodfin's already taking the new board to court, so this is quite a situation. We'll keep an eye on that. But that is breaking news while we were sitting here this afternoon. All right, going back to the national news, like I said earlier, Trump has responded to the SCOTUS opinion with a 10% increase. It does not look like there's much else in the breaking news world this afternoon. We can go back to some of the other stories of the week, talk about a little bit more state stuff. There are some breaking news in terms of things happening around the country as we try to a get back out of this hole we've dug with these ice protests and such. I'm looking at a good news a thing to celebrate. We'll talk about college campuses. Samford University. We got something to celebrate for Samford University. You guys hold tight. I'm going to take a quick break here. April Marie filling in for Leland. Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here. I like how I tripped over my name. April Marie, who am I? Who am I talking to? Where am I?
You're April Marie.
Yes, that's it. Some people just call me April, and I'm like, at what point have you heard me say my name is April? Occasionally, like if I'm giving somebody my name, like I'm going through a drive-through and they ask for a name, I'll say
Mhm.
April. But usually it's AM or April Marie. I'm like, oh. Um, so April Marie here. You can find me on X at APRYLMARIE. That is it's like spelled with a Y. People go, oh, and I go, well, why is that? And I'm like, I was born in April. That was as original as my mother got. I am pretty sure there were drugs involved, to be honest. Occasionally, I'll meet somebody else, another April with a Y. It's been very rare. I can count on one hand the other Aprils that are out there with a Y. As a matter of fact, I've heard from two of them wanting my name, my like different handles because I have April Marie. I have all the April Maries. And so every now and again, somebody will be like, "Can I have your Twitter handle?" I'm like, "No, you can't have my Twitter handle." Like, "No, you can't have my email address." What's happening? It's very entertaining. All right. As I mentioned, the Trump and tariffs that SCOTUS deal is pretty much all that's covering the news these days, or today, with the news that broke today. And essentially, the court said, "Look, he can do tariffs. He just can't do tariffs citing the emergency powers that that he's trying to cite." In which case, the Trump administration was like, "Okay, we'll see that, and we'll use these other powers over here that we have." So within hours, they were like, "All right, we will." There are other four other ways to do these, and so we're just going to look at them and do it another way. Which, by the way, this is what you do when you're in business or in government. You game out all of the scenarios. If you go into any type of fight, whether it's, a policy fight like this, a legislative fight, a committee hearing, whatever it is, you need to game that out. I tell people all the time. So I love to talk to kids getting into politics and young lobbyists or young whatever. I'm a wise, sage old lady at 44 years old. But I will tell people one of the keys, and I had this conversation just this week, one of the keys to going to a lawmaker, actually, I think I told this on air. Now that I think about it, somebody called in and said they had a veterans issue and they were trying to get a lawmaker. I tell everybody, don't just know your position and those who stand with you. Know the position of your opponent, what they're going to say. Because if John Bird comes to me and he's selling me on an idea, I want to know, and it's best for John Bird before he walks out that room for him to say, "Hey, Andrew's going to come in and try to sell you another idea, and this is what he's going to say, and this is why he's wrong." Because then when he walks out and Andrew walks in, I already know what I'm about to hear, and I know the counter arguments to that. And so Trump and his team, this, they game everything out because he's a businessman. And so, yeah, they lost the SCOTUS case. He's probably, I say probably, pretty ticked from what we're hearing and seeing on comments, not just that he gave in the press conference, but in meetings afterwards. But he's not going to let this knock him down. He's not going to let this get in the way of his agenda. An agenda, by the way, that see is working. An agenda that is getting other countries to come to the table and make better deals. An agenda that is bringing jobs back and is reinvigorating an economy. And so that's what we got going on here. And so this is what you're going to see throughout the, especially. And I started the show today with some of the Democrat responses that right now Democrats are taking a victory lap. Woohoo, we won. Kinda. You won this round. It was a battle. We're going to win the war. We will eventually, in this Trump administration, put America first. Why? Because it's what he promised. It was the agenda. He came back into term two with an agenda. It was America first, and he's going to keep acting on that. And for every loss he gets, for every loss he has to take, he's just going to keep rolling with the punches and do more. And in some cases, you'll see him react by doing more, doing bigger. At this point, and this is something that I do want to circle back with. One of the things that we have to do, one of the reasons the midterms are so important, is we need to be doing some of these things. We need to back up what Trump has done, using executive privileges. We need to back them up with congressional support. This is going to be tough. You look around us right now, and the money is on. We lose this, and then our even baby thin majority where people keep turning and not supporting this administration. We're going to lose that, but we need to do what we can where we can and get things into law, because this volleying back and forth, every president doing and undoing, we got to do things that are so strong, so big, they cannot undo them. That's what I'm looking for in this changing of the U.S. Department of Education. Get rid of it, send it back to the states, and make it nearly impossible, if not impossible, for the next administration, the next Democrat that gets there, to redo this. Make it so that the states are no longer dependent on the federal government for their education dollars and their education guidance and their education regulations, and make it so that the states have a competent system set up where we know who's doing what. I mentioned earlier that federal or the state department board of education. We've got the state department of education, we got the board of education, and here in Alabama we are really teeing up for a Tommy Tuberville governorship, where he's going to come in. And like I said, I'm ever so optimistic that he's going to come in and it'll be like Trump V2. It'll be like Trump term two. Well, he'll come in. He will have learned from the governors around him. He has no primary. Okay. Ken McFeeters, oh, Lord have mercy. Ken McFeeters, God bless him. If you're a Ken, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you're a Ken McFeeters fan, could you at least tell him to learn how to spell Tuberville's name correctly? Every now and again, somebody will send me a message he's posted, and I'm like, for the love. He's spending his days railing against Tuberville. Nobody knows what Ken McFeeters wants to do as governor, because all he does is spend all day, every day, tearing down Tuberville. That's not a freaking campaign platform. Somewhat ridiculous, but that I could go off on that rant, and I won't go any further into that, but Lord have mercy. So Tommy Tuberville, obviously going to be our next governor, having lots of lead time. That's the thing about not having a crowded primary. For better or worse, he has the ability right now to plan out and game out what he's going to do when he takes office. This is big. This is a big deal, guys. I really do think that he is going to learn from what Trump has done, and he's gonna game this out and plan this out, and it's gonna be we're gonna see really really cool things. All right, so we talked about the SCOTUS decision. The thing I care about, and you guys know this, more than anything, is protecting our kids. And I just want to say, and I debated on whether or not I was going to say where it is, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. There is a situation in the greater Birmingham area where a school had an event for girls, for female students, for girl students. It is a beauty pageant type of thing for girl students, and a boy wanted to participate. And, the school administration was like, "No, we don't think so." And then it went to the students, and the students were like, "Yeah, we also don't think so." I am so proud. I'm so proud of these girls and these boys who are protecting the girls' space, and love this. All right, talked myself right out of a segment there. Back in just a minute. You're listening to April Marie filling in for Leland. Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here. I was cracking up during the break. Ilhan Omar went to an ICE detention center in Minnesota, and before she got there, apparently it was a planned visit, planned about a week ago. Before she got there, they had transferred every single one out of the facility.
That's awesome.
She's standing in front of an empty facility. They said the last transfer was made 30 minutes before she arrived. So they gave her permission. She wanted to come in and check the place out. There was just no one there for her. So there's a video of her standing in front of an empty ICE detention facility. And you can tell she's just as mad as can be. Her photo op, her AOC fake crying moment was stolen from her. Same as the Somalis are stealing daycare money there. That's what's happening. I am thoroughly entertained by this. Can I just say that at some point there was a moment in which I was like, okay, like we can't joke around with some of this stuff. And then like they had, I don't know if y'all saw this, they had ICE officers who were going around roundabouts, and these woke white raging liberal women were following in their vehicles, and they just start doing circles in the roundabout. Round and round we go, round and round we go. I love it. I love it. Here's the thing is we have people out there actively, not just getting screaming, not being rude, but impeding in law enforcement operations, putting these officers in danger, sometimes assaulting them, all of these different things. And they're dealing with this every day. In some ways, these small things, going in circles and roundabouts, moving all of the detainees before she got there, that's what they deserve. Like, I mean, I really wish there were more they could do again, especially against, and in Alabama, we're seeing additional legislation for those who are interfering in law enforcement operations. Oh, I was going to ask about that bill. I might actually get to do that before the show. That reminded me. I said I would ask April Weaver what was different about this bill, and I'll find that out for you. But it frustrates me to no end. One is because I will always back the blue. If you don't know this about me, you should. Uh, understanding that there are some bad apples, and actually I'm going to talk about one a little later in the show because there was an officer who was arrested. Remember earlier I said there were four Pickens County teachers arrested on child pornography and charges like that. There was an officer involved and arrested in that same ring. There were reporting requirements not followed by some of these people. So we'll get into that a little later. But I will always start from a place of knowing that the vast, overwhelming 99.9% of law enforcement officers are good people with good hearts, putting their lives on the line for us. That's where I will start every single time. You can't convince me to start somewhere else. I know way too many law enforcement officers. I know what they're up against. You look at places like Birmingham. Why is Birmingham the way that the changes we've seen from even a year and a half ago to now? They were able to get law enforcement officers. It took a minute because the city for a minute the officers didn't feel respected or seen or supported. Then they started putting these retention bonuses and these hiring bonuses and staffing up. I will forever support our law enforcement. And so watching what they've gone through, specifically these ICE officers, and the vilification of them, it just it gets under my skin. Some of y'all may have seen I wrote about the Irondale mayor, and if you didn't see this, I want to bring it to your attention. But the Irondale mayor does this, and I don't know I think I want to say it's weekly newsletter. And in his weekly newsletter, he vilifies ICE, talking about ICE tearing families apart. He puts ICE in this really negative light. Like these officers signed up and they had some evil plot. They were going to go after people just going about their business. No, they're trying to get the worst of the worst off the street. And while they're at it, they will pick up, if they're in an area, they're going to pick up everybody who's there illegally. And, it's not like you can send out like, "Oh, we're just gonna precision target." And by the way, there are groups and apps and all the things here in Alabama, and the group that is doing the targeting of ICE is getting money from the city of Irondale. Now they said, "Oh, it's for weather awareness." The group doesn't even do weather awareness. If you go on their website, I found one photo in 3 years of the group doing anything related to weather awareness. Really what they are, anti-ICE in support for both legal and illegal, but they act as if they're the same immigrants. They're not the same. But I tell you what, after watching the vilification of ICE, I think this is hysterical. Ilhan Omar went there, and there was no one there for them to see. Because what was she going to do? She was going to use them as props to continue the propaganda machine against ICE. No matter what she saw there, it didn't matter. If she saw one person there, she was going to make ICE look like they were bad guys. The only way to prevent that was to do what they did and get everybody out of there. This is absolutely hysterical to me. Speaking of ICE, I mentioned earlier how glad I am. I did a series earlier this year on Samford University in Homewood, and they really shining a light. It was actually, I'm sorry, last year. Gosh, it's already February. And it's been almost a year since my first piece, or since the first piece that started the series. And Stanford University had gone all in on DEI, all in on racial reckoning, and all in on oppression and da 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 da, all the stuff. Over the course of months, we uncovered just literally it was everywhere. It was entrenched in their university plans. There were diversity action plans. There were literally student orientation groups devoted to this. It was a whole thing. We exposed it. They got rid of it. Now, some of the more active conservative groups on campus, and they've got a Turning Point USA chapter that are getting out there and trying to defeat and keep that campus conservative. Because when I'm looking around at the universities, I cover both K-12 and universities for 1819 News. What I find at Auburn, I'm like, that's surprising. Yeah, but it's still a big university, big college, state school. Alabama, I've done some craziness there, but usually in the programs in which you'd expect some of those more liberal arts programs. Samford, I did not expect to find from literally the top, with the support of the administration, all the DEI nonsense. So I'm really glad they rooted that out. But I was talking about ICE, and there was a story in the Samford Crimson where these Turning Point USA students had a table. And I'm like, hope for the next generation. Because they were yelling out to students who walked by, is ICE good for society? And based on this very unofficial poll, but again, a very good, makes me happy. By the end of the day, the group reported 130 students yelled out, yes, ICE is good for society, with only 30 no votes. Now, what's funny is the author of the story for the student publication wrote it with such a slant, you can tell she's anti-ICE. So if she's a journalist, if she's studying that, she's got some work to do, because by the end of it, she's talking about Customs and Border Patrol having a table at the upcoming jobs fair, and she's talking about oh, some students were too intimidated to yell their answer back. But that's very good sign for me. 130 yes, ICE is good for society, to 30 no. It would be interesting to have a conversation with those 30 students, by the way, who were no on that, and see what the heck they're doing at Samford campus. Are these liberals whose parents are religious and they said this is the school you got to go to? Are these students in a particular program? Because in my experience researching Samford, there are some professors, one particular in the communications department, but there are some professors spread around campus who push a radical agenda on their students. It would be interesting to know and to chase down, not in a, we want to stop them from blinking this way, but how did these kids end up on campus? I'm not saying they got to get off campus. Don't get me wrong, but they're outnumbered, and I'm glad that sanity is reigning at Samford University. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I don't know how many of y'all watch Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy has been on forever. John Bird, did you ever watch Grey's Anatomy?
No.
No? Okay. So I watched it the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 seasons. It was literally every single episode was how woke can we go? And they would introduce a woke. It was whether racism or immigration or this or that, the patriarchy bad, whatever. But before that, it used to be really good. And one of the main characters from the show, everybody knows from that show, passed away. And he had ALS. And before he passed away, he wrote a message to his daughters. And I read it earlier and I was I was like, okay, and so I'm going to read it. It's really brief. I'm not going to put you to sleep. I promise. It'll be worth listening to, but we're going to do that on the flip side. Phones are open. It's a free for all Friday. I have spent all week inundating you with policy, state and federal, talking to you about local news. This free for all Friday, I'm all over the map. Join me. Back in just a minute. April Marie filling in for Leland.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here, filling in for Leland. I mentioned, so it's the actor is Eric Dane, who passed away. He was an actor, most famously on Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Mark Sloan, if you were a Grey's Anatomy. Um, but there is what has happened is before his death, he filmed a segment for Netflix. I didn't even know. I'd never even heard of this. John Bird, I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called Famous Last Words, and he filmed the interview, and he's very. It's clearly like I went to find the actual interview for us to play, but it's heartbreaking to hear because he can barely get his words out, and you can tell he's got something to say to his darling daughters, um, but he can't get the words out because he's really struck by the disease at this point. But he passed away yesterday. It's really come to light today with the Netflix message to his daughters. But it's kind of did you know that they did this, that they pre-recorded people who knew they were dying and then would put it out?
I had no
This is
idea.
apparently a series that they do. Famous last words, and now I've got to go like see who all they've done this for because this is I don't know.
I'm kind of mixed about that.
Yeah, there's multiple of them. It's a documentary, and I don't know. There's definitely something captures interviews with icons, and he's just the most recent of them to be um, to be released. Dr. Jane Goodall did one, and there so they just released it. The deal was that they made with him that they don't release it until he passes away. But it's this gut wrenching message to his daughters about the way he lived his life, and realizing that he has stumbled and that he wasn't perfect. And so he said, "These words are for you. I tried. I stumbled sometimes, but I tried. Overall, we had a blast, didn't we?" He goes into some specifics about their families, but he said, I want to tell you 4 things I've learned from this disease. I hope you don't just listen to me. I hope you hear me. First, live now, right now, in the present. It's hard, but I learned to do that. For years, I've been carrying I've been wandering around mentally and lost in my head for long chunks of times, wallowing and worrying in self-pity, shame, and doubt. I replayed decisions, second guessed myself. I shouldn't have done this. I never should have said that. No more. Out of pure survival, I'm forced to stay in the present, but I don't want to be anywhere else. The past contains regrets. The future remains unknown. So you have to live now. So that's his first piece of advice for his daughters. Second, fall in love. Not necessarily with a person, although I do recommend that as well, but fall in love with something. Find your passion, your joy. Find the things that make you want to get up in the morning, drives you through the entire day. He goes on to some personal notes on that. Third lesson, choose your friends wisely. And his fourth was to fight with every ounce of your being and with dignity. When you face challenges, health or otherwise, fight. Never give up. Fight until your last breath. So he gives this interview, and he gives it when he's in a wheelchair, when he's exhausted. He's literally just, it doesn't say when he recorded it, but clearly close to death. And he was diagnosed with ALS 10 months ago. And so again, I guess this is the second in the series, but something they're going to do. I don't know, John Bird. It's heartwarming, but it's also, I don't know.
I mean, it is heartbreaking because you see him in that condition, and ALS strikes so quickly.
10 months. I
had a friend who got it, and within less than a year, she was gone.
Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
I had no idea he was even sick. I mean, like I said, I don't which his character had left the show that I saw him on. But yes. So I did. I pulled it up and I thought, well, we'll watch this. It's only, let's see, it's 6 minutes long, but I started it during one of the commercial breaks after I had found the written version, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. So if you are a fan of Grey's Anatomy or you just want some heavy end of life advice, Eric Dane's Final Messages is now on Netflix. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about some of the things making headlines. Okay, I said earlier I was going through the candidates for the elections, and I almost don't even want to mention because at this point it's just ridiculous. I mentioned Ken McFeeters, who's in theory running for governor. You would think that actually he's spending all of his time just bashing Tommy Tuberville, which is really frustrating. But I opened up Facebook where I had saved the video and the words that I wanted to read off of, and I see this meme that McFeeters has posted, and it's somebody peeing over the edge of a mountain. They're like, "You're running for governor?" Like,
What?
I'm not kidding. This guy is not. This is not someone who wants to be taken seriously. Like, why do you run for office if you're going to be just like ridiculous? If you're going to use middle school potty memes, like what is that? Who is that? That's ridiculous. Very. It's it's what kills me about this guy is he's like, none of the media will cover me. Okay, well, good news, Ken. I'm covering you right now because I just have to say this. You one hand, you're like, none of the media will take me seriously. They won't cover me. They're all in for Tommy Tuberville. And on the other hand, you can't spell the man's name, and you're posting memes of someone peeing off a cliff, trying to make fun of Tommy. Get it together, dude. Like, get it together. We in this state have seen some madness with our elected officials. And believe it or not, our standards, while they seem low, like over time, sometimes I look at someone who's elected in the state and go, how did we end up there? Our standards may be low, but they're not whatever this is low. Okay. And I would never tell anybody who to vote for or against, but I will say, I say that. I would never, these day and age, because I'm not allowed to tell somebody who to vote for or against. But you cannot be taken seriously as a candidate if you don't take yourself seriously and what you're trying to do seriously. Get it together. All right. As I mentioned, oh man, this show has flown by. Leland is back again next week. As I'm sitting here trying to say that I did want to get into, and I'd mentioned it and then didn't get into it, the Olympics, because I haven't been watching the Olympics at all. But what's been great to see is that their Olympians, you've seen, and I feel like the media really hypes the ones who say stuff bad about the country. Like early on, there were a couple of people who were like, "Oh yeah, I'm embarrassed by ICE or whatever," and I'm like, you have a First Amendment right to say that, but I want you to appreciate you're competing against people who do not have the right or ability to say they don't like what their government is doing, okay? So you're pretty freaking blessed. In a world where I'm against people talking about privilege and oppressors, we're living that this is a circumstance where you have the ability to go represent your nation while criticizing it. I want to focus on the ones who are honoring our nation and honoring their faith and all those good things. So I'm going to get to that when we come back on the flip side. You guys hold tight. It's Apryl Marie filling in for Leland.